Hi guys, thanks for joining me for one final video for this Madeira renovation project. Unlike the other videos, I'm just going to take a totally different approach on this video from a closure standpoint and just let you see the progressive photos within each kind of isolated zone. And so I've separated it from front to back elevation on the interior spaces, just the different rooms, so that you can see some of the progression and appreciate the overarching scale of this project and how extensive it was. The, the owners of this property started this process so that they could be within a vibrant neighborhood like Madeira, which is the same community as me, and they wanted to live on one level. Um, the original house was purchased for somewhere around $230,000, and it was a very modest ranch, and its footprint was far from gracious and just completely outdated. And so they took it probably further than any project I would recommend taking it, but they did it purely for their personal enjoyment. And I would say, as a rule of thumb for renovations versus strict new construction, and then especially from an aging standpoint of things, people that do renovations like this are motivated by a simple enjoyment of their space. And if you want to do a renovation and be extremely budget conscious and be appealing to all spectrums of what you think your future market is, you're going to have a very stressful time doing your renovation. If you change your mindset and you take the approach of, I'm going to create something that's very special for me, and I'm going to really enjoy living in a space that I'm able to create, that to me is a very healthy way to approach a project of this scale. The detailing within this project was specified by both an architect, the owner, and the builder. I had a few opinions on it as well. And it takes several people to kind of flush out a good idea. So from a recommendation standpoint, I would recommend coming up with an overarching plan even before you identify the property that you want to renovate, and say, here's what we want to create. Here's the budget line items where we think where it's going to kind of land, and then go attack it. I was recently on a phone call with another realtor, and we had just walked a home, and it was updated in like a flipped mentality so that it would become relevant again to the marketplace. And I said to him, I said, this buyer didn't value it in that regard. They would want to do X, Y, and Z. And X, Y, and Z for me totaled up to be $50,000. And with a straight face, he said, I've got a guy who can do that for 10. And the reality is some people could do it for 10. I could not do it for 10. And I've never met anybody that's actually done it for 10. And so coming up with a realistic budget, understanding how you're going to finance it, those are probably one of the biggest hurdles for these kind of projects. But the fulfillment of coming into a project that you've designed from scratch and seen from original footprint to expanded footprint to all these different layers of build out is very rewarding. And understanding 110% of what went into it is a lot of fun for certain personalities. Financially, the scale of this project exceeded a new construction budget. So what I mean by that is it would have been cheaper, after totaling it all out, to just tear this house down and build new. One of the realistic implications of that, and the reason why the homeowner did not do that, is it would have raised red flags within the city of Madeira as to building footprint and setbacks within the building lot because it was considered an irregular lot. And so that's another thing just to think through when you're planning out your next project is, from a variance standpoint and from a who is going to have an impact on my future enjoyment. At a point, the municipality that you're going to renovate in has their voice, and the intention of that voice is to protect your neighbor's property value, so that somebody doesn't come in that is like two guys in a truck, and they're going to tear into a house, and then all of a sudden the money's going to stop flowing and it's going to sit. And so there's been projects throughout the tri-state that I've watched that have hit financial stoppages where the economy's changed, the owner of the property's business went under, and all of a sudden work stopped on a property. And I would have hated to be one of the adjacent owners, and all of a sudden a project just stops and there's a dumpster in the front yard and nobody's showing up anymore, and the grass stops getting cut, and all of a sudden you got a half-built project in foreclosure. And so the intention of the municipality from a code and a zoning standpoint, their intention is to protect you. The reality is that they end up impeding the process more than perceptually more than what their value add is. And I think that's where people have a problem with it. So long story short, they could build a larger house on this site by doing a renovation in addition, leaving the original house, than if they tore the house down and started fresh. And the implication of that financially is they could have probably done this project cheaper as a new construction versus a renovation. So that's just another thing to think through. From a selection standpoint, now that we're looking at the bathrooms here, one major thing to think through when you're interviewing a general contractor is where's their relationship with regards to their finished suppliers. Does your general contractor pay their bills? So when they say jump, the supplier says how high. Are you having to front them money on everything, or do they have credit within these businesses where the financing of it is not so kind of grabby when it comes to owner draws or a builder draws? If a bank is not in a process and it's just a cash paid renovation, the oversight is between it's on you as the client. If you're financing a project like this, the bank is the person who is actually performing these draws, and it's considered a new construction loan, or it's a 203k renovation mortgage, or it's something that's a formal product, and there's due diligence from the bank that oversees it. Because of that oversight and the pace of it, it's usually not that attractive to people. And so one of the fun things for me is figuring out with clients, how do you finance your dream, and which products make sense from a short-term and a long-term standpoint. And one thing that is consistent is lines of credit, or just the simple fact of saving money and having cash on hand and holding back 1 or 2 years worth of capital investments into long-term plans, if you can afford that, is to start to assemble this money. Because these projects you go through and you have these portions where you just hemorrhage cash. When a major trade comes off the job and you finish, say, the rough framing aspect, and you're paying the foundation and you're paying the framers, it's an enormous amount of money because the lumber package is quite expensive, and then you have labor costs on top of it. So that's interesting. But back to the suppliers, getting people to show up on a job site, especially in today's market where there's a labor shortage on skilled skilled labor is enormous. And I think when people do even a small project and they get somebody to come over to their house and give them a bid, and they say, yeah, I can start tomorrow, for me, that's a huge red flag. If you don't have a book of work where you're scheduled out, it's a bit scary. Um, what's that person really charging you if you're the reason that they're going to be able to pay their mortgage? Are you getting a good deal because they're hungry? Or are you getting a bad deal because they really need to clear X that month and they haven't cleared it yet because they haven't done a good job marketing, they haven't done a good job servicing their clients, so they're not getting referrals? And there's a lot of questions that I think you as the consumer should be asking yourself and to those people. And I think the more frank that you can be with contractors so that you can learn what makes them tick is going to ultimately create rapport, and it's going to create a lot of respect between you, the client, and then the contractor. Most people, when they finish a renovation project, are dear friends of the employees and the owners of that company because they have been part of that family or part of your family, depending on perspective, for an extensive amount of time. And then from a warranty standpoint, having that relationship and really going through it is exciting and it's fun for everybody. And so the benefits to renovation are extensive. The limitations are endless because you throw enough money at anything and you can make it. Is it always the most cost effective? No. Is it sometimes more practical? Yes. And so if you're curious about doing a renovation, be it as extensive as this project or even just a kitchen renovation, there's a lot of fun and interesting questions that you should be asking yourself from a material standpoint, from a where should we start from a selection standpoint. Do we call the contractor first or do we call the architect first? All of those are case specific, and I think they warrant a conversation, a simple conversation with a professional like myself or somebody similar in a kind of an advisory standpoint. And if you do have those questions, feel free to reach out to me. Phone number is area code 513-500-7474. And my email is john@pain-team.com. And I'd love to talk to you with regards to where you are currently in the market, where you could end up in the market, what your exposure point is, and how you should go about doing your project. And houses are my life, and they're a lot of fun for me. So in closing, it would be extremely rude of me not to mention some of the major team members on this. And it started with the architect J.A. Smith Construction Design Studio. It was executed by Pendery Construction, and they're a general contractor and several subs on it. Suppliers from Louisville Tile, Kemper Design, to JP Flooring. The list goes on and on and on, from skilled, trained professionals that do this day in, day out, and execute beautifully on what they consider to be their craft. And while every project is going to have its hurdles, as this one did, the gracefulness that the team came together, created solutions, and essentially solved all the problems, it's a one-to-one correlation as to why this project, I think, is a success in everybody's minds who was a part of it. So creating your own success on your own project is definitely related to who you surround yourself with on that project. It's very similar to kind of a life lesson. So I'll leave you with that. If you guys are watching this video and this is the first one that you've seen and you're curious about other ones, please check out the website sellandbycincinnati.com under the heading Madeira Renovation. Thanks again for your interest in this project, and have a great day.